So my name is DConner, and I did my project on the importance of STEM and how it's best taught. So my big research question for the semester: what is the importance of STEM in the classroom, and how do you teach it the best? So I picked this because I've always been in the STEM related classes, and I noticed the sort of lack of them at our school. Curious as to why that would be, and so I mainly sat in on Owen Onderdonk's class in the middle school, 6th through 8th grade, all the technology in the middle school. He gets every single student to go through his classroom. My 8th grade year was his first year teaching at our middle school, so it was very interesting to see how he evolved that whole class. And it changed a lot. When I was there, it was mainly just the students doing everything, and now there's like an actual class. It's interesting. The second part of my internship I did at PVCC. I wanted to get a different level of STEM classes, college-based thing. And the only real difference I saw, students were trying to get their certificates to like actually be able to work in these fields. A lot more structure, and it was more textbook based. Overall, for my internship, I spent probably 20 hours observing how the teachers taught. I kept a notebook on it to figure out what they were doing that worked and what they were doing that didn't work. Great teachers, also not so great teachers. Part about PVCC was that one day I went all day long, and in between classes to the students. And the thing I noticed was about the classes was based around what the teacher was doing. It wasn't really the content of the class was hard or like the projects were dumb. It was that this teacher made it interesting or this teacher was boring. It was all the teacher, which, so as we all know, the teacher is the most important part of the class. My community service, I decided that I should get a taste of teaching my own class. I River with John and Mary Nan to teach my own class. I ended up getting my own class separate from John and Mary Nan, a bunch of second graders by myself. But it was fine because it turns out second graders aren't that scary. And learning about magnets is what they told us. So I decided it'd be cool relationship between electricity and magnetism. So I made a bunch of electromagnet things. And I explained how it worked. And I was mainly hoping that they just understood that they do go together, because I don't think second graders are going to understand this stuff. In this picture, these are all the things that I ended up making to show the kids. Generator right here. So it's just a motor, and it's DC, so when you drive it backwards, it generates current. And then I made a model loudspeaker over there, electromagnet, and 2 motors and a compass to let them play with. And a pro tip, app store to get the cheap copper wire is not copper. It's nearly copper coated and it does not work. So I spent probably more making all this stuff. It takes a long time to wrap copper. And the kids went crazy when I can make a light turn on just by spinning this thing, hook up a screw to a battery, and now it picks up paper clips. And actually, one of the girls, the little electromagnet right here too, the next day she came back with her own, and she made it out of computer power cord. It was bigger copper, and it actually worked better than mine. So that was nice. kids, they were all really interested. They were all raising their hands. It was actually kind of impressive how well they understood what I was talking about. So the significance of mine that throughout my research and throughout like the internship and the community service on like way to educate these kids, because in my research I found that there's a widespread problem not being able to solve problems or like critically think and easily answer simple problems where they just have to go into a textbook, pull out the answer, and write it down on their paper. But when you give them something that asks the how or why of it, much more complicated, especially with like the infamous math or word problem in math, where they have to actually apply the knowledge that they have, they start to struggle. And I found that this is because they aren't really challenged to be, and they aren't driven into the concepts rather than just memorize them. Physics example, you can easily get a student to remember time equation. So like the velocity times time plus 1/2 gravity times squared plus height. But is when you try to get them to understand what is happening in that formula, and so they actually understand it. And that's what we need to be driving the kids toward. And I found that the students that do actually understand and like what it means are the ones that do better in school and better on the tests and the problems where they have to apply what they know, given the information and plug it in. I picked for my project was Benjamin Franklin's "Tell Me and I Forget, Teach Me and I Remember, Involve Me and I Learn." Because it fit perfectly. What I've noticed is that today's school system is at the teach me and I remember part. The involve me and I learn is where we need to be. This is when the student understands, they understand what it means, and they can start to answer those how and why questions, those harder questions. So what I learned about myself. So I couldn't really figure out what I learned about myself, and I had to ask Miss Knight. And so we talked about it for a little while, and was that I do, and I'm all right at it. However, when we were at Ty River, split, me and John and Mary Ann split the second grade class, so I'd have half of them for a week, and they'd have the other half, and then we'd switch the next week. But the second week, teaching the same thing, it's fun. So I can teach, but I get bored with it really quickly. And something that Honordonk did in his classroom, since he does have to teach projects to the kids, is the first 20 minutes, I think, is the structured class, like requirements, the same projects every year. And then the last 20 minutes, the students all get to do an individual project that they just choose something they're interested in. It's never the same. So he always gets to do something different with every kid, which I found really fun.
I have a question. First, I'd like to pay you a compliment. Speaking as a teacher, of course, it seems that your focus was on student engagement and student achievement, and you came back several times in your presentation to the students had learned, and you have your humility in your acknowledgement that the young lady made a better with the magnet better than you. So I think that's the mark of a quality teacher. So, like I said before, you might end up in education yet, Dylan. My question for you is, with your knowledge now, what instructional recommendations would you make to this school? Teach me and I remember to involve me and I learn.
So something that I realized was a big part of it is the student ownership. Have to be interested and it has to be flexible. They have to want to learn. Like you can't just make a kid learn or the knowledge down their throat. So basically, classes use projects to do this. They'll give a vague topic like we're doing acceleration, something that has acceleration in it. And with acceleration, anything. So then it is the student's own project and they want to complete it and they want to make it work. And that's when you get them interested and you get them to learn about acceleration. Classes like history, I guess, you would give them I don't know exactly how you do it, but you just have to keep them interested. Format is kind of the best. Sort of create it. It isn't like given to them and they just fill it out. And something you did well in your class was that you give us a topic. So we stay focused. It's basically ours. And the ownership is that big part about it. It comes down to how good is your teacher and how can the kids stay focused. In an ideal education system, every student is going to want to do every project to the best of their capability. Not true. Yeah.
What are your plans for the future specifically?
Oh yeah. So I'm going to Virginia Tech in fall for engineering. I'll probably focus on autonomy, something with neural engineering, and then I have no idea. Hang on. Like,
for when you go over at that,
I mean, I like teaching and I think, but the problem is I do get bored with things I've already done. I do not like to do things over and over again in school. Like doing the same problem over and over again, that kills me. I'd have to have a very flexible classroom where the kids can do different things every year, learning the course material.
Sounds like you're a professor in the making.
Yeah.
Just keep going to school, get that PhD, and then
That's a lot of money.
Not if you do it right.
Not if you do it right, not in science.
There's a lot of money to
No student loan.
Make all your life plans for you.
Okay, hey.
I got it.